this episode, we are full on spoilers for both the novel and the film.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jen.
I'm Bill, also known as Matt Stagger.
And I'm the Geeky Hippie. Welcome back to What the Adaptation, the YouTube channel that reviews adaptations from one format to another. Today is our 2-year anniversary, so we're continuing our reviews of the Lord of the Rings Extended Edition trilogy, this year with The Two Towers, the extended. And to help us this year, we have Jim. You probably recognize him. He's been on here enough times. Jim, how's it going tonight?
It's going real well. Glad to be here.
Glad.
And happy anniversary.
Thank
Woo-hoo.
you. 2 years ago today, our first video came out. I can't believe it's gone by that fast. So The Two Towers Extended Edition came out in 2002, I believe. Peter Jackson directed. We all know the story. It's like part of the greatest movie of all time, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Unquestionably.
Partly confused though why you keep having to say the extended edition. That's the only true version of this film.
There's that shortened version that just got over.
Yeah.
Cliff Notes version. Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, if there's no Fangorn Forest, I'm not watching.
That's true.
Plenty of Fangorn Forest there. Well,
There you go.
There you go.
it's the Horons.
There you go.
At Helms Deep, technically, but
Mm-hmm.
what does everybody think of this movie?
I enjoyed it. It actually, believe it or not, I know you said it was your favorite. It is not my favorite of the three, but it is still exceptional. I mean, it's still one of the best things I've ever made of all time. So let's go with that. But before I start asking my first question, I'll go round robin and have you guys have like a one sentence or affirmative or whatever you thought of it.
They can say however much. Jim, what's your
It's
thought?
like eating.
Well-
It's like eating a warm soup. It's very comfy. You slip right back into that movie and that frame of mind when you were young. So that's my sentence.
For me, it's similar to how it fits with the books. It's actually my least favorite, but I think all three are freaking amazing. So, it's a relative thing, but it's a bridge movie. You've got the intro, the setup, and all that amazing stuff in the first one, and then it all comes home with so much awesomeness in the last one.
Agreed.
It's hard to live up to that all the way through, but there's some
Two
awesome
words.
sequences in this
2
movie.
words. Helms Deep. Helms Deep,
Yeah.
up until Game of Thrones, in my opinion, had
Yeah.
the best
Yes.
medieval battle ever made.
Yeah,
not
Battle of the
Fire Run,
Bastards
not
barely
Fire Run.
beats it out.
Which one?
Yeah. But
Battle of the
Bastards.
Bastards
Yeah.
barely beats out Helm's Deep.
barely. I mean, and
I
that's
said
just,
that to my wife tonight when we were watching.
Uh-oh.
yeah.
Was that
Yeah,
fighting
Helms-
words?
Hmm?
Was that fighting words when you said that to her?
Oh no, she
Okay.
agreed.
Okay.
I bet it's just it's very, very close.
Yeah,
So-
Helms Deep is awesome, no doubt.
Yeah.
But there's some parts of this movie, again, just like the book, that are a little slow.
Yeah.
There are some parts
Yeah.
that you're like, okay, come on, move along. I know it's great, but move along.
Yeah.
The book is actually my least favorite of the three,
Right.
Right.
but this is my favorite of the three movies, extended edition.
Interesting.
Interesting.
If you're not doing the extended edition, which yes, the short version does exist, I don't love it that much. I actually, if I had to pick a favorite theatrical version, it would probably be Fellowship.
Yes, me too. But because of the opening, hands down, because of the opening, hands down. It's like the extra like 20 minutes. But anyway, getting on to the first question. We'll keep it the steam rolling right in, all the happiness. Of all the changes in the source materials, but in this case material, what are some that you enjoyed and what are some that you disliked? Out of respect for our guest, I will pass it to you first, Jim, and then whoever wants to chime in afterwards can go in. You'll have that. I'll give it to you first as the guest.
Oh, so no time to think.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Overall, this is a pretty faithful adaptation. It was one of the things I was thinking as I was rewatching today. It's just there's so much that they actually capture well from the books. The book in this case, just the tone, the theme, every part of it. So, man, it's.
Are there any changes you think?
What's that?
Is there one you don't like? A change you didn't like?
Not really. Not really. I just enjoy this movie. Again, least favorite of the three, but still, everything that they changed just made it better for film.
Yeah.
It
Mm.
told the story in a way that you couldn't otherwise communicate so well. So I appreciated the adaptation changes
Mhm.
and really struggled to think of anything that I didn't agree with. Now, somebody's going to say something you don't like, and I'll go, oh, duh, of course, yeah. But I'll wait to chime in then and agree with you if you come up with it.
I'll quickly chime in and then I'll pass to Glenn. I will probably say that I really enjoyed how they did the movies. Everything they did for this particular movie, I understood. However, Faramir was probably the farthest apart from what was perceived otherwise naturally written. However, there was a lot to work with, like the tension between him and his father, the tension between him and his brother. Like that was all like pretty much paramount to what was going on with the material that they worked with. So the source material for the reason why Faramir had his issues was correct to the original source material. However, like they just they went further with that because, you know, Faramir's line of like not being able to, he was like very like, no, if I saw the ring on the side of the road, I would not pick it up. Like that was his whole thing in the books. So like him being tempted by the ring, it made sense to do it in the movies because you had all this buildup. It literally tempted Gandalf. It tempted literally everyone almost, including even Frodo towards the end. So having Faramir go through that temptation of him and almost like considering like that he was going to shoot Gollum and all that like they were doing in the movies was different than the book material, but at the same time like you understood like where they were coming from that. So I don't know like if I enjoyed that so much, but at the same time I completely, like you said, Jim, understood where they got that adaptation. And then I'll pass it to you, Glenn, for you to say what you liked and what you didn't.
I can't think really of anything that I disliked when it comes to changes for the most part. I You're talking about the farmer and how it makes sense to you. That I still, it's the one thing I think that sits a little uneasy with me.
Yeah.
But there are two changes to the story that they made that I really like. The first was leaving something out of this movie and pushing it to the next movie. And that's
Shelob.
yes. I don't deal with spiders well. I just had a freak out about a week or so ago. I was sitting
you were going to say.
and my mattress is on the floor, so it's real easy for this to have happened. I look over and not 2.5, 3 feet from me is a wolf spider, probably about that big around, just comes walking up onto my bed.
Mini Shelob. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Smash. After I freaked out a little.
Yeah, I have the Discord messages to prove it because he was like, "Oh my God, spider on my bed."
Yeah, it was pretty terrifying, and it took me years to figure out, but I think I have Tolkien to blame for my fear of spiders anyways, and that goes back to The Hobbit. Talking spiders in the forest, Mirkwood Forest, capturing
Yes.
dwarves. And then Shelob. And then Shelob. Yeah. So leaving Shelob until the next movie, A-okay by me. And there's a change that I've actually become very defensive of it because I actually prefer what they did in the movie. I forgot that at the Battle of Helms Deep, well, I sometimes forget that at the Battle of Helms Deep, it's the Dunedain who show up to help out. And that it's a change where in the movie, it's the elves who show up to help.
Oh,
at the
that's
Battle of
right.
Helm's
That's right. The elves did not show up.
And I actually like it more because I think seeing elves willing to sacrifice their life, which could be eternal, literally live without physically dying forever, and they face that to stand next to mankind, and to fight
They
the.
have come to honor that allegiance.
Yeah, I think it's more emotionally weighty that, and then seeing Haldir die with the sword to the back of the head, than if it was a bunch of Dunedain that have hardly been established. I don't think Dunedain is mentioned more than 3 times this entire movie. In this entire movie, and that's the extended edition.
Once. Yeah, and the extended.
Um, I don't think Dunedain even get mentioned in Fellowship of the Ring, and it's just one of those things that had to get cut, and
Yeah.
replacing them with elves, I think. And a lot of people complain, oh, the elves never showed up at Helm's Deep, but this works better.
That's right.
I think this works better.
Yeah, there would have had to been a lot of reworking for the
Yeah.
Dunedain to now be there at Helm's Deep, because
Yeah.
so many setup pieces are not included anywhere.
Dawn
Only the
on
readers
third
would be
day.
going, oh, we know who those are. But
Yeah.
all the other people would be, what the heck? Yeah.
That's another thing. She just mentioned Dawn of the Third Day. I totally forgot that in the book that it's not Éomer. That Éomer was already at Helm's Deep, and that it's Erkenbrand, who we never actually see.
We never
the
see
line
the
of
movies. Yeah.
we never see him in the movies. I don't even think in the book Erkenbrand ever actually has a line of dialogue in the book.
Mm.
So, which is one of those complaints that I have about Tolkien is Middle Earth doesn't feel like it's really that populated. You just the people, it mentions people, but you never hear them talk in the books. In the books, I mean, you see people exist. I think you see more people on screen in the movies than you see on page in the books.
Hmm.
And it just that was part of what drew me in about the Wheel of Time, is it felt so populated, that world.
Oh yeah.
Compared to all of the rest of fantasy, which goes back to, well, Tolkien didn't start it, but Tolkien popularized the genre.
Bring us home, Matt, to give us your final words on what you like about between the differences of the book and the show, of what you
I'm-
liked, what you didn't.
Honestly, pretty much on board with all the changes. I think some of the Legolas action was a little bit over the top. I will say that. Surfing down the stairs,
Legolas and
Lollipops?
Gimli.
the
Yeah.
reverse flip up onto the horse. I mean, that felt a little over the top, but I can
Okay.
forgive it.
I like the horse move. The surfing down the stairs was a little over the top. Yeah. Although I had a Kender do that to my paladin at his mansion one day, and that was no fun. Grabbed the family shield off the wall and was sliding down the stairs. I get that. But the horse thing I thought was cool. There is one thing that I totally I forget about a lot, that I remember while I'm watching, is Gimli gets played dirty this movie. I love Gimli. Gimli's one of my favorite characters, but he's the butt of the joke in this movie. Dwarves according to the book The Hobbit, can run for days and days and days and then fight a battle.
Mm-hmm.
Gimli, way at the back of the three of them, I can't do this. Breathe. That's not a dwarf. The dwarves would never have been like that. Short jokes left and right in this movie. Yeah, one of the lines comes straight from the book. I'd take your head off if it stood a little higher. But the whole, should I get you do you want me to describe what I see, or should I get you a box, coming from Legolas when they're at the crenellations at Helm's Deep? It just doesn't. I dislike that, and it's the entire rest of the trilogy.
I did too.
I'm
when
not gonna
first
lie. I
watched it.
like movie Gimli a lot better.
Really? Okay.
Much more personable. His whole thing
Yeah.
going on with Legolas is just more relatable than he is in the book.
Yeah.
See, I get what you're saying there, comparing to how he is in the book, but the banter, the entertainment factor it brought to this movie, I thought added a freshness in the midst of some of the dark and heavy things that happened that I just
Yeah.
love.
Well, I
It
understand.
plays really well on the screen.
It does, but as as a change that it just doesn't sit well. I understand why they did
Yep.
it, because you have to have
get
that.
ya.
You got to counterbalance the darkness. I don't know. I kind of love Gimli. I'm also a huge John Rhys-Davies fan. I've been a John Rhys-Davies fan since
Me too. Yeah.
Indiana Jones. The first Indiana Jones movie.
Yes.
And
Sliders.
Sliders. What, 7 seasons of Sliders? 6, 7
I
seasons.
love sliders.
Yeah, I think he was only on for 4 or 5. But yeah, I loved Sliders.
Yeah.
I forgive him for being in Shannara Chronicles. I forgive him.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I love
I
it.
have to forgive myself for watching every episode of that show.
Mm.
I
No, I did
have
too,
no
and
idea.
I still have nightmares. Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on. I'm going to leave this one to Bill because you were last time, so you'll open with the first answer to this question this time. How well did the show interpret the appearance and nature of the costumes, props, scenery, and creatures, both practical and VFX? And how much did you enjoy the music? So there's a lot of like music, costumes, props. This is this question. What do you think?
Okay, music is epic. It's
Oh,
one of those
yeah.
soundtracks where I think
Oh,
everybody
Yes.
ran out and bought it. I did. I still have
absolutely.
digital copies
Still
of
listen
it.
to it.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I have the entire soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
Costumes were on point. When they were
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be dirty, they were dirty. And
Mm-hmm.
they stayed dirty until they
Mm-hmm.
changed clothes. So I
Yes.
appreciate that sort of level of detail. I hate that when somebody, gets thrown off a cliff into a river and then they come back and they're clean magically. This didn't happen.
Yeah.
Aragorn was torn up and his clothes were messy, so I
Yeah.
love that. And I mean, just the costumes in general have been on point. Creatures, um, absolutely for the time, cutting edge, state of the art. You do notice a little bit of weirdness with the wargs now, but it's
Mm-hmm.
only
Even
because we've
Gollum.
come so far. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Even a little
Yeah.
But I
weirdness
mean, the
with
performance of Golem sort of wipes everything else away. Andy Serkis is just,
Phenomenal.
yeah, on point. So
Yeah, agreed. I'll go and give it to Glenn as the next, and then we'll go around to Jim and then me. Then I'll start.
I
I'll
have to
lead
get
next time.
the level of detail that Weta Workshop in general, and counting Weta Digital as part of Weta Workshop, it is unparalleled. I
Oh yeah.
don't think. I mean, Bernard Hill talks in the special features about how he was tripped out about the inside of that cuirass that Theoden wears is sigils and stuff on the inside where only Bernard Hill of the people on screen ever saw it. Nobody, it's never shown on camera, and it just the bow, the bows and arrows with the arrowheads have elven runes inscribed on them. Unless you got a really high def screen, you're not going to see it. But there's elven spells worked in, onto the arrowheads. It's just detail after detail. I
Mhm.
didn't originally like the design of the wargs. Maybe the first 50 or 60 times I saw the movie. But it occurred to me a while ago that they kind of had to change the wargs away from looking like wolves because people like wolves nowadays. When
Yeah.
Tolkien wrote this, people didn't like wolves. And yeah, there are people who still don't like wolves because, they eat their livestock. But, we don't have the same attitude towards wolves that making the wargs look more like wolves, real world wolves, and using them that way would have really just probably pissed off a lot of people. They would have been maybe not angry, but they would have been annoyed. There would have been some really angry people, but you know, especially Perrin fans, would be really upset. But not like they were thinking about that. But it's about the only design choice that I ever didn't like, and that ever really was a question. There are some minor inaccuracies on a few things, but not really much. I really love the look of the Rohirrim, though. It really did just,
Yeah.
Bill and I were talking about it earlier. We both picked up hair ties from this company that has these designer hair ties, and I've got this set that's called the Vikings, but it's a lot of Viking and Celtic style knotwork, and just looking at it on my wrist when I taken it out on my hair, and then looking back at the screen and seeing all this Rohan stuff, I was just like, kind of fits thematically, I think, just their style and design.
What about you, Jim? What do you feel?
Well, we've already said the music. Music's amazing.
My
Absolutely.
God.
The setting again, the broad nature views, the cinematography in this movie is again epic in scale and scope. The opening sequence when we get to, and it's Frodo's dream sort of, but it's really what happens to Gandalf with the Balrog and everything they do through all of that is just amazing. And then they come back to it again when Gandalf the White, shows up and he explains what happens.
Great.
but that's all done so well. It all looks great on the screen.
Yes.
These things help tell the story. Nothing takes you out of the story. And something that really struck me on this rewatch is, again, thinking back 2002, how good Treebeard actually looks, and the
Yeah.
look of Fanghorn Forest. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they just nailed it. You know,
They did.
you forget you're looking at just some creature thingy that they've made up. It's a character. It's
Mhm.
real on the screen. So
Yeah.
beautifully done.
Yeah, they had some shots where you could see the wetness of his eyeballs, and I was
Yeah.
sort of amazed at
The
that. I told my wife, I'm
details
like,
they put
it
into
really
it.
looks like his eyes are real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These were people who loved The Lord of the Rings, and
Oh,
they wanted
God.
it to be
Yeah.
real for us.
Yes.
And all the complaints people make about adaptations, it's hard to complain about The Lord of the Rings. It's
Yeah.
just, it was an act of love that people were like, yes.
Unless you're Christopher Tolkien, who hated the trilogy.
Oh.
Yeah, he complained that they made him into action movies. I think there's more
An
to him
action
than
book.
action.
I disagree.
Yeah,
Mm.
I don't really think there's more action in the movies than there are in the books. I think, as a matter of fact, I think there's more fighting in the books that didn't make it to screen.
Probably wanted more poems and songs.
No. I was about to say, as long as they cut the songs, man.
But we
Yeah.
That's
still
what
got
Christopher
this.
wanted. See,
We
Well, yeah,
still
man.
got songs. We still got
I
the
know
songs.
we got some, but he wanted all of them. All of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Got the
did-
song at the funeral.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
was thinking the funeral scene. That's actually what I was thinking of. as
Treebeard
well,
is
say the funeral
singing.
scene. Yes.
He's more talking poetry than anything else.
And putting
Mhm.
them to sleep with it, but
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it's there.
The
Like
first
a
movie,
little baby.
the first movie got Aragorn singing. At one
And-
point.
And the next movie, when he's crowned king, he definitely
Oh,
does
that's a
sing,
moving
Yeah.
doesn't he?
part.
Oh,
That
Wow.
was when he was crowned and the flowers fell. But anyway, that's the
Spoiler.
next. That's it.
That's
Sorry,
next year.
sorry.
That's next year.
I'm like, yeah, stop, because I
Sorry.
will start getting missed. My friends,
Yeah.
you kneel to no
Man,
one.
no one.
I'm done. I cry
That-
every time.
Yeah, yeah,
My,
yeah.
I'm done every time.
I didn't.
Anyway,
mention
that's
the
next year.
music. I didn't
We
mention the
need
music
Jen's
because
thoughts on this one now.
okay,
Mm.
and then I got more. I didn't think. Go ahead, Jen.
No, I was going to say, when I first saw this, I hadn't read the books. So 2002, I was fresh out of high school. I'm going to
Oh,
date
wow.
myself here. So I was
Make me
like, I
feel
knew
old.
nothing. I knew nothing. I come into this, I'm like, what the hell is this shit all about? So it was great. I was like, this is
Man.
cool. I actually really like the works. So when I first saw it, I remember being spellbound because, okay, here's what I was thinking. You guys are going to laugh, but like, before that, my previous reference to what a battle scene was like the Legend of Hercules Adventures of like Xena and stuff like that on TV, which was like
No.
right before that time. I know, but that's what I was coming from. So when I saw Helms Deep, I was like, holy shit, is this what a battle can look like? The rain, the practical effects on it, and both like all just coming together. It was like, you shot this like in there. You didn't even have to do this. You technically didn't have to do this in the rain, but you wanted it to be muddy and gritty and dirty and nasty and bloody. You
Mhm.
felt like you were there. Everything was just the thing is like, okay, like if I had a kid, right? Like I would look at it if it were like of age, like if it were like in its preteens or whatever. I was like, okay, we're gonna watch The Lord of the Rings. I would not feel embarrassed how like 20x odd years later for it to sit down and watch this and be like, oh mom, it's too old, it's really old. Like I don't really feel like I would get that. Like
No.
it holds so up so well.
Absolutely.
And the
Yeah, it
music
does.
is just timeless. It's immortalized. It's done. I can't think of any better music for a movie of anything that's lasted this long for all of time ever. I don't think anything in fantasy will trump this music. I'm going to be honest with you. I would like
high
that would be
bar.
awesome. That would be awesome if I experienced it, but I have yet to experience something that's going to last throughout time for so many people the way that this has. I don't know if
Well,
it's going to happen.
Yeah, as soon as the music starts, you know what you're watching.
You're
Yeah.
done.
There's a switch that goes off in my
Ye-
head. immediately.
For the most part-
people watch this just to cope with everything, just with their daily lives 20 years later. Like, I need to watch
I
Lord of the
listened
Rings.
to I listened to the
therapy.
trilogy. I listened to the 6 movies together in a playlist, randomized, all the time. For the longest time, my homework music was the Lord of the Rings trilogy of soundtracks and Battlestar Galactica mixed together, which might not sound like it goes together well, but then years later, somebody did figure Bear McCreary and Lord of the Rings, yeah, that works because they did it with Rings of Power. He did the theme or the show. Howard Shore did the theme for the show, the main theme. Yeah, I didn't bring up the music early because I kind of figured it was almost a given that everybody thinks the music is better than the movies. Okay, I love these movies,
Yeah.
but this music, I think, will go down in history. 500 years from now, people will look at it. You will go to concerts, symphony orchestra concerts just for Lord of the Rings music,
Got to.
and that it will be seen on the same level as anything by Mozart, Beethoven, Bach, any of those guys. Just like I think
That's fair.
John Williams will be up there alongside Howard Shore and all those names with his entire oeuvre. But this trilogy of music, it's just amazing. And the Celtic
Untouchable.
feel, the very Celtic feel of the Rohirrim is carried on with the music too, because there's a lot of really, a lot that ties back into a lot of traditional Celtic music with that, instruments especially. But yeah, the music is just amazing, and the CG, it just goes to show. I'm going to mention the show again. Battlestar Galactica and Lord of the Rings have one thing in common, other than the music, is they both have CG that 20 years later holds up.
Yeah.
I mean, there is some weirdness, like you said, with the wargs, and a little bit of weirdness when you're looking just at Gollum. Not
I have
the
to look with a
performance.
microscope to see it. So
I mean,
because they give you so many close-ups of Gollum right, basically looking at the camera, and it just looks great. It really does. You have to be nitpicky to find the things.
And that's what I was like. I was really looking at it. Does the CG still hold up? And I was being very critical, how I was looking at it. And yeah, it holds up. I mean, it's better than a lot of stuff I've seen since these movies came out. Since
listen, I love the Wheel of Time, but let me tell you, those Uruk-hai did look better than the Trollocs. I'm just gonna say it. Say it. They're both practical, in my opinion.
Better than some of the stuff that came out later when they did the Hobbit trilogy.
Oh yeah,
Lord of the Rings stuff is better than. They should have been able to be just as good or better. No, they're not.
Well, they
the
decided
Hobbit
to
does
go
not
with,
hold up to Lord of the Rings.
I love CG and I love the use of CG, but there is such a thing as overusing it, and the Hobbit trilogy was overused CG. There should not have been CG created orcs. That was some of the goblins maybe, but the orcs, when you see them in the Hobbit movies, should not have been CG. That should have been people in costumes, just like they did for this trilogy.
And they were so good in the Two Towers. The orcs, the Uruk-hai, they look
all of them were practical.
Awesome.
I mean, look at this mind flash behind me. What is I gotta take this next question because I love this. Okay, so the next question is, what is the scene or sequence you most remember, enjoyed, and or hated? Nothing will stand the test of time. Was when in the movies they stop with Merry and Pippin and they're like, we ain't had nothing but maggoty bread for 3 stinking days. That was the best. And they're like, yeah, what about them? They're fresh. Every time we go get groceries, every time we come at home, and we're bringing up the groceries, and we got to decide which bag to grab first from the back of the car. I go, what about them? They're fresh. Like talking just like about which groceries to get. Like that's literally a daily, we don't get groceries daily, but like weekly situation at our house. So yes, that's great. And somebody, I don't know who, but the other day, Chris and I were so fucking mad. Sorry, you're gonna delete that. We were so mad that we said to ourselves, somebody was asking, how does the Uruk-hai know what a menu is? And we didn't realize until later that we're like, oh my God. So that was kind of a thing they did in the movie. We're like, looks like meat's back on the menu,
I
boys.
love that
And then someone
line.
on the internet, and someone on the internet goes, how does an Uruk-hai know what a menu is? I'm like, oh my God. How do we not ask that question or pick up on that? So we love it now looking back, because like it makes no sense that an Uruk-hai knows what a menu like even is, and the fact that it came from this film is
That's one of my favorite lines to quote from this movie.
so the meat's back on the menu, boy. I love it, and
I
it's
do too.
full just movie stuff. It's so camp. It is
At times.
deliciously camp. And
Have you looked at Peter Jackson's earlier movies? Have you seen
I
Dead
haven't.
Alive?
No,
Yes. Awesome.
is it
Black
camp?
sheep.
Oh
That's
my
so-
God.
Oh, gory camp. Over the top,
yeah,
ridiculous gory
Man.
camp.
The
A
lawnmower.
lawnmower.
Oh,
Lawnmower
Oh.
to take out a room of zombies.
oh, and the stuff's flying
And you-
everywhere. Oh my
The
goodness.
mom. Wow. Yeah. Peter Jackson's early stuff is hardcore camp.
So I knew exactly when we were doing this today. I didn't know what was going to be, but I'm like, I have to have Uruk-hai as my background screen, just because, like, the way they talk to each other, like, and flesh, like, here and talking about the menu is just phenomenally done.
It's
I
creepy enough.
can't-
There are animals in this world that want to eat us, or at least want to take a bite to see if they want to eat us. And that creeps me out. What creeps me out even more, though, is when they can talk.
Yeah.
You know? They don't need.
What about the
their
legs?
They don't need their
I don't need
legs.
those. I don't
Yep.
just the way they do like the practical effects of them. They are not for eating. And that one guy's like, "Ugh."
I to this day still want to go to a convention, some kind of fantasy sci-fi convention, or do Halloween dressed as an orc. Not an Uruk-hai. I'm too short to be an Uruk-hai, but put me in like Grishnak's makeup. Yeah, I could do that. I'd have fun playing an orc for Halloween or as a cosplay. That would just be. It would be gross afterwards because all that latex and you sweat inside and it just
So what about you, Glenn? It goes to you. Next scene or sequence you most remember, enjoyed, and or
I
hated?
brought it up earlier. I think it was before we started recording. It might have been after Helms Deep. It just that
Sorry.
sequence.
Yes, you did.
And the fact that they moved Shelob to the next film is just
Sorry. Yeah.
made it so much easier for me because that was the one thing I didn't like in Return of the King because that scared me. But there was some things that they added to this that's not straight out of the books, that I really like that scene, the Stinker Slinker scene, Gollum Smeagol, split personality scene with Gollum.
I loved it.
Oh my
It's
God.
magic.
I just
That
absolutely
was
I
one I was gonna
love it.
say. That's right there up there in my favorites.
I loved it.
Yeah. But that's the one I probably most enjoyed or remembered. I can't really think of anything that I could say I hated or disliked as a scene or sequence. But who's next? Jim? You liked?
Jim? Mhm.
Did you have anything other than that one?
The Smeagol thing, and when he makes Gollum go away,
Yes.
and your heart just goes with that. But then add to it the end of the movie, and now it's all Gollum.
Yes.
He's been betrayed. And you're like, oh, if
Faramir!
only. Oh, yeah. So those two sequences together is something very memorable for me in this movie. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it
even though
was
I
too.
read the books, I knew what was going to happen. Still,
Right.
watching it on the screen, I'm like, oh, so close.
And that's a change that just popped into my head. Not only did we leave out Shelob from this movie, we put into the first movie Boromir's death, which is actually the beginning of the Two Towers. It's the first chapter. It's like the first one of the. It happens at the beginning of the Two Towers in the book. I like seeing that at the. I think it fits better at the end of Fellowship of the Ring as a movie.
It's a breaking of the fellowship, really. It's like one of the first major breaks. What
Yeah.
about you, Matt? What do you think? Like a scene or
So-
sequence you enjoy?
Okay, it's going to seem
Oh, sorry.
weird, but this particular scene sort of sparked my imagination when I first saw it. There's a scene where Aragorn, after he had his argument with Legolas, he sits down and there's a young kid, basically a kid with a sword, and he talks to that kid. That scene actually prompted me to write my first short story. I went home and wrote a short story about that kid
Nice.
Oh,
going on to become this
wow.
hero or something.
That's
So-
awesome.
That scene in this particular movie has always been my highlight moment. There's just an intimacy and something that sparked my imagination. So I love that moment. I love that scene.
Is it the
So,
same
for me,
little
that's-
boy that had his sister on the horse that the mom sent them off from the village, or is it a different little boy?
You know
believe
what? I
it's
don't
different.
know. I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm not 100% because they both had long blonde hair. So
Yeah,
They're from Rohan, so yeah, they. have
Yeah.
well,
blonde
yeah,
hair.
could
So-
be. Could be.
yeah. But I went home and wrote it's
Nice.
a bad short story, mind you, but it sparked
That's
my imagination. So that
awesome.
scene has always sat with me, and it's one that I don't know. There's just something about it that really speaks to me. So
Well,
that's my
you were a
favorite
dad
scene,
already
which
by
is
then,
weird.
weren't you? You were
I got
already a
one more
dad
to
by
jump
then.
in with. When
Yeah.
Go ahead,
I
Jim.
do have one more. The scene when Gandalf does confront Theoden.
Oh,
and snap
yeah.
him out of that.
yes.
And who let him keep his staff? But
Took the
that's a
wizard's
powerful
staff.
scene, and just knocks the Saruman out of him. It's fantastic the
It
way they play
literally
it. The whole
knocks the
thing is,
Saruman out of him.
yeah, he
'cause
does.
I love that cuts to that editing shot cut to Saruman
Mhm.
flying back is just
Yes,
brilliant.
it's a powerfully done. So that's a great scene.
Mm-hmm.
There's some really good
I mean,
editing in this movie.
Grima Wormtongue casting, just
Oh yeah.
Yep. I've loved
Oh.
that actor ever since. When I see him in other things, then
I loved him since
he
Chucky.
shaved
So
his eyebrows for that, and what a difference that makes in a character. Holy cow!
yeah, so
He had,
creepy.
he had to do it again when they went back for pickups, and his wife was mad that he had to shave his eyebrows again.
I
I've been
did
a fan
that.
of Brad. I've been a fan of Brad Dourif since
Brent
he
Dorff,
played
yeah.
Peter. Since he played Peter DeVries in
Dune.
1984 Dune.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And it just the two characters are a lot alike in it when you
Yes,
think
they are,
about it.
actually.
It kind of
Yeah,
was perfect
Yeah?
casting.
evil genius sort of thing
Yeah.
going on.
Skeevy.
Advisor, crooked,
Very
twisted
slimy.
advisor.
I'm
Brilliantly played by
interested.
Brad Dourif. And
Mhm.
I loved him when he was on Star Trek too. So, when he's playing so not that character.
He would have made a good Padden Fane. I'm just gonna say.
Oh.
Could have done it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
He
I
would have
was
made
always
a really good Padden Fane.
partial to Steve Buscemi or
Oh yeah, he
Oh.
would have done too.
I can
what's
see
the name of the guy? He played Rumpelstiltskin on that
Oh.
long-running
Oh yeah.
Mr.
Oh.
Gold.
Once upon a time.
Once upon a time.
Yeah,
Oh, I
he
used to
was
know.
He'd be great.
he was in
He'd be
Stargate
great.
Universe. He was in Stargate Universe
Yes.
as the scientist.
I had the biggest crush on him. I had the biggest crush on him, and I can't
I've
believe I
seen
forgot his
some-
name.
I've seen some great movies with him. But
Oh my
I
God.
would have
Remember his
loved him
name.
as Padden Fane.
I think Jim's looking it up though.
I am.
Yeah, I'll know it as soon as I hear it.
Starts with an R.
Mr. Gold is
Something.
all I remember from Once Upon a Time.
Yeah,
Robert Carlyle.
Robert Carl. I
yeah.
knew
There
it
it is.
started with an R. Yeah,
There you
I
go.
would had the biggest crush on him.
He did a movie with Liv Tyler. It's on.
Yeah.
It's right there on his IMDb. I can't think of the name of it. Something and somebody. It was two names, but
Something and somebody.
yeah.
Like I've seen a lot of
that's a lot of
those.
films.
Oh, wait,
Uh,
what?
It was a name and a name. Is what it was. It was two character names, and I don't remember what they were, but
He would be an excellent Padon Fane. He did.
Yeah,
I
he
loved
would
him
have
as Mr. Golden once upon a time. I was obsessed with that show before it turned
But-
weird. But anyway,
but the idea of Brad Dourif as Padden Fane, that's kind of almost
Yeah.
inspired there. Brad Dourif is just brilliant. And no, I didn't include him in my
His daughter
actors.
is as well. I don't know if you've seen her on the new Chucky series.
No.
Yeah,
Didn't
she
know.
stars in the new Chucky series. Oh, it is. Mwah, she is so good
Yeah.
because she has to play her father because sometimes she's possessed by
Oh,
Chucky.
that's incredible.
So it's
Wow.
hilarious.
That's
Nice.
wild.
Yeah,
That's
it,
It's a
cool.
little meta.
it's worth a watch. Even if you don't like horror, it is a great series.
But
That's
Brad
cool.
Dourif was so good in that too. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
Brad Dourif is just, he's one of those great actors that just is so underrated because most people don't even know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
They might recognize the face, recognize the voice, but they wouldn't recognize the name if you just said, that actor Brad Dourif. Who? You'd have to say Chucky, Grima
The Brad
Wormtongue.
This is the Brad Dourif Appreciation Hour. We got it here. It's here.
I can live with that.
Well, yeah, we horror fans have known about Brad Dourif for
Oh, yeah.
eons, so
And he's
we're
one
all
of these-
like, "Welcome to the
He's
party."
one of these guys who has done so much. You look at his IMDb, it just goes on and on and on and on and on and on.
And that
Man.
doesn't even count all of the theater he does. He's
Oh,
a big theater
cool.
actor too. Done
He's
a lot of
great.
theater.
I'm interested in how you guys feel about this one. How well written was the dialogue, and did it adapt the dialogue from the book well? So this could be either way. This is probably what the biggest nitpick potential is this question here. Like we don't have the songs. So it's kind of how you feel. There's a lot of like derivative dialogue that was written essentially because of how it was written back in the time in Tolkien's time. Like the language is slightly different than what American audiences could pick up when it was done. So you're going to have to adapt a little bit. I think that was done well, with still throwing some homage, like just the way that they changed the sentence structure. Even the stuff they kept from the book, it was like the sentences were changed with the structure to where it
Sometimes.
could make more sense, to where like a modern audience could pick up. Not all the time, but it was done. So what did you guys think about it? I think I'm coming again from a I watched the movies first and then was interested in the books and stuff later. So I was like, oh, okay, like to me I liked it. It made sense to me, but now I'm curious because I did not come from the other direction. And I think all of you did.
Yeah.
Like you read the books first. So I was like, okay, this makes the most sense to hear these words like this way. And then I read the book. I'm like, that's a really weird way of saying what it said in the movie. So that's kind of my take on it. But
it just sunk in. It's like, wait a second,
You're not
what?
wrong. You're not wrong.
No.
So that's how that's my perspective of it. So how do you think? And I'll pass it to Jim. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll pass it to Jim first.
Again,
If you
this-
need some time, I think you're
No,
looking maybe up
no.
something. I can go to Matt.
No.
and then go to Glenn.
This is fine. This again ties into just the quality of the adaptation. You're absolutely right. They change the style of the way things are said so that it plays well on the screen, and it plays for the time that they're delivering it. But they didn't change what it was supposed to mean.
The
Right.
message.
The context is still holding true. They tell the story well. So there are here and there parts where they clearly that's pulled straight out of the book, but most of it is
Literally,
just
yeah.
it's another telling. They've written dialogue that makes sense, and it tells the story well, and you can just follow the story and not get lost or, but wow, that sounds awkward now. So I'm fully entertained and satisfied with the way they wrote the dialogue.
I'll pass it to Matt next.
Bill.
Bill, sorry, I keep saying Matt Dagger. Sorry. Bill.
Yeah, you're fine. I'm both. Are the words directly from the book? Most of the time, no. Am I mad about it? Also, no. You can't adapt somebody's prose to a film. It doesn't work that way. This is a visual medium, so you can't necessarily do the dialogue the same way with everything. It's that there are things it doesn't work with. This is one of them where they took the idea of a chapter and were able to show it with
There is a
minimal
lot of-
words, changed words. So I'm completely happy with it. I'm not angry that it's not, word for word out of the book. I'm not that crazy. I understand that media adaptation means change.
There's a surprising amount of dialogue that is almost word for word straight out of the book, though. Having listened to the book this weekend and then back and forth between the book for a while there and the movie this evening, I was like, oh, I just heard Andy Serkis deliver that line as Aragorn earlier today or yesterday, or that line he did as Gandalf. I can't remember the whole that line, but when Gandalf was talking about his fight with the Balrog, that line, and smote his ruin upon the mountainside.
Mountainside. Mhm.
That just, you wouldn't write a sentence in that with the grammatical structure that Tolkien used in the book.
Mhm.
And they used it in that line. I don't remember the rest of the line, the preceding part of the line, but it was word for word from the book. And there are certain stances like that. But yeah, they did change a lot, because one of the big complaints I hear from people specifically younger people, and I'm talking 30 and under, who try to read The Lord of the Rings when they didn't read it when they were a kid. Because I was 8 years old when I read Lord of the Rings. So I just assume
Okay.
that's to me how a book was written. That was how prose was done. That wasn't anything weird or hard. And nowadays you get kids, sorry, those of you under 30, I've heard too many people say it, and it from that generation, that the prose is hard. And I'm like, really? I never found it to be hard, but I
It's a
guess
little
when
difficult. I'm
when
there on the
you're
cusp.
when your peak of prose is Brandon Sanderson, Tolkien will be a little hard.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
when we read it,
Well,
because
that's
I'm
not
with
a
you,
dig.
I read it
Sanderson
very
says the
early.
same thing.
No,
we
Yeah.
he
didn't have a
is.
lot
I know.
else to compare it with yet. There wasn't a lot of context against. So you
Mhm.
had Tolkien.
Yeah,
And now there's so much else to compare it to. But back then,
yeah. For me,
that was fantasy. That's
it
how
was
it works.
Tolkien and
And it
C.S.
made sense
Lewis.
to us.
And even somebody more recent than Tolkien, Bill and I were talking about this a week or so ago, or at least I brought it with the Rift Wars stuff by Raymond E. Feist. You were there, yeah. It was the three of us. There's some
I
archaic
wasn't there,
phrasing
brother.
in those books.
Very
There's
archaic phrasing.
there's some very archaic phrasing in those books
Archaic
that
pacing too.
harkens back. I'm pacing. That harkens to me back to Lord of the Rings.
It does.
I would never say that Raymond E. Feist cloned, Lord of the Rings in any way. That was
He
Terry
created his own
Brooks.
world.
It's a very different story, a very different.
No,
That's
Terry
true.
Brooks did as an homage.
He
Yeah,
did.
his Sword
True.
of Shannara.
100%.
Shannara. Sword of
Yeah.
Shannara was that, Oliver. Yeah.
Yeah. And even Jordan, but not the prose style, just the story, elements in Eye of
Story,
the
like
World. And the elves,
the plot.
So
Quick, we
many
must
of
leave the two rivers.
fantasists,
I mean, the Shire.
yeah, so many fantasists in one way or another have taken what Tolkien did, whether in story elements or with Feist, like language. But yeah, I guess Tolkien doesn't have the easiest prose, which includes his dialogue, to read. I never noticed, but and I do, listening to it now though. Yeah, it is a little archaic in the phrasing, but
It's
I
a
don't.
little clunky at times.
Yeah, I don't think it's hard to understand or follow. It's not like trying to read Shakespeare or anything, which I admit I have a hard time reading Shakespeare. I'm better at watching Shakespeare.
Well, it
As
was
it's meant
meant
to be
for that.
consumed.
Thank
Yes.
you, Jim.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah, but it's still I enjoy it. But anyway,
I have a whole collection of Shakespeare. It's this thick. I've read it.
yeah,
It's hard.
It's hard.
I've only
I
read
enjoy it.
about 15-20% of the collected works of Shakespeare. I'm a little embarrassed about that. Should be a
No,
lot more
it's
than
fine.
that. Should be more of
No,
that.
you're okay.
You're okay. You're totally fine. You're fine. You've read them all. Then it's the same. It's a different
Read
story.
more than a lot
I'm
of
fine.
people I know have read.
Yes. Yes.
True.
All right. So the next question is: did the actors deliver their lines well? Who would you call best or worst actor in our best casting, worst casting? You can choose it. The three people.
Glenn.
Glenn, I love how we always. That's great. Oh, Bill, you did it, Bill. That's awesome. So, I'm gonna probably go with this. I'm gonna say Aragorn as
Why?
Viggo Mortensen.
Viggo Mortensen. Yeah.
Viggo
Th-
Mortensen. Why? Okay, because first of all, it wasn't Aragorn. It was actually, I should probably also say Gandalf, because I did hear the thing that Sean Connery turned Gandalf's parts down.
It's true. He
Um,
didn't get it.
yeah. And then like a couple other people were supposed to be before Ian McKellen. I don't think Ian McKellen was even the second choice. I think like somebody
Oh,
else was like
wow.
asked. So
See,
I
I didn't know
have
about
to
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. So I was like, I can't imagine. Like, I'm like so glad that happened, because I think Ian McKellen did a great job as Gandalf. I'll probably say him. And oh, to answer your question about Aragorn, you know, because again, you have to go back to high school, Jen. I didn't know who Viggo Mortensen was. I hadn't seen him in anything, so this was like some fresh dude. I was like, who's this guy? And I was like, he does the rugged, kind but stern leader. Like, I haven't seen that articulated in the same way of doing a character since, by an actor with something with that gravitas. Does that make any sense? Like, I've seen like kings in like 5-10 minutes of very somber pomp and circumstance, or like when they need to be battle ready. Like even Théoden was a king. He was a king too, right? But Aragorn was just, I don't, a certain je ne sais quoi. I don't know what to say, but it's not even like, oh, Aragorn's hot. That's a whole nother thing. I'm divorcing that. I'm just saying, as far as acting goes, he embodied a different type of leader that before that I had not seen in film or any other sort of media before. And I have yet to place that where it would be as believable and with a heavy heart. He carried his burden, and I understand reading the books later that Aragorn didn't have that kind of quibble about whether or not to be king
Right.
the same way that he did in the movies. You know, that wasn't such an issue for him. He always knew that that's where he was going to end up. But at the same time, like, he just really redefined what a king, because before that movie, right, to me, a king just sat in a chair and was either a good king or a bad king. And then Aragorn came.
I'm
So I was
picturing
like,
Prince John or King John
I was
and
like,
Robin
I
Hood.
was like, yeah, he's either Robin Hood or King Arthur, who was just a cuck, or he.
Wow.
No, I'm not
Wow.
diminishing King Arthur.
Wow.
Tell us how you really feel, Jen.
Well, he
No,
did get
no.
cuckolded, so
No, I'm playing, like, not really. That actually happened, like, legitimately. That was historical. But he defined another way of being a king to me. That wasn't like evil bloodshed, like Viking, like that bad. That even though he could tally ho and sally forth when he needed to, but it was really super cool to see that. And it wasn't like, there was no, even in his weak moments, he had such a somber I'm
gravitas.
trying to look for the word. Thank you to it. Exactly. That I
Gravitas,
really
yeah.
So I would say for him, because I'm trying to put any other actor fairly into that position of the time and see all the different shades of Aragorn carried out with the same amount of weight.
Are you familiar
And
with Stuart Townsend?
Yes, I am.
He was the original person cast to play Aragorn.
Yeah, no. With respect, no disrespect toward him as a person. I was like, who's this guy?
That was
Who's
a
this
better
guy?
choice. That's a much better choice right there.
Yeah, he was phenomenal. I honestly, okay, all the other casting aside, even when it comes down to Galadriel or anybody else that was this huge super figure, even Gandalf, if you took a different character as Aragorn, it changes the whole movie. There are two people that drive the Lord of the Rings, the whole three movies. It's Gollum, and Aragorn. And Aragorn, however you say it. But like, everybody else is also very, obviously Sam's the most important character. No disrespect to Sam, but like, Sam has the same cheerful, charismatic, we're going to push on no matter what's faced. It's the levels of differentness. Like we talked about Gollum versus Smeagol. You have to have somebody that can carry off the both together, and Aragon and his different ways of leading people, because you have to feel like these people really want to be led by this person. And I would say a third, so it's Aragon for me, then actually I'll probably say Andy Serkis as Gollum, actually very close to Aragon. I mean, they're neck and neck. And then probably I would say my earlier thing was is Gandalf as Ian McKellen. Gotta be because
Bill?
they carry it for me.
I have two that are neck and neck. Vigo, of course, as
Mhm.
Aragon, but Sean Astin, absolutely
Oh
as
yeah.
Samwise Gamgee, because throughout this movie we get that complexity. We see him a little upset that his friend is paying more attention to Golem than him. We see him a little jealous, but at the same time trying to look out for the best for his friend. And I mean, just the subtleties in those different scenes. And, you know, in the extended, we get him actually being nice to Golem in the end, where he's like, hey, you know, he didn't really want the Rangers to be rough with you, right? And, you know, he even said, so we're going to let that go, right? And Golem's like, yeah, we're going to let that go. Sure he is. But he's like, yeah, okay, good man, good man. I mean, I love him. Plus, Sam is the real hero. I don't care what anybody says.
That's
Forever
true.
and always, Sam is the
Yeah.
true hero of the story. So
Agreed.
those are my two.
I'll jump
Go
in
ahead.
real quick.
Mhm.
First of all, I gotta say, I always said that in the first movie, Sean Bean was the best, performance by far. The third movie, I give to Sean Astin, best performance by far. This movie, there's no choice but Andy Serkis. What Andy Serkis did here made this movie in so many ways. Gollum would not have worked if Andy Serkis's performance wasn't as brilliant as it was. Next, not quite close because nobody comes close to Andy in this one. I'd have to say next for me was Miranda Otto as Eowyn. It started like a
I was
10-year
thinking of her.
crush. It started a serious 10-year crush on Miranda Otto for me too. Because she's just brilliant in this movie. And I always liked Eowyn. She was always one of my favorite characters, even as a kid. And I really liked. And then the other obvious one, Ian McKellen as Gandalf. I can't picture Sean Connery as Gandalf, even if you had told me that 25 years ago, when this movie was still in the process of being cast and written. I don't think I could have imagined Sean Connery as Gandalf. John Huston had the voice. I think it's John Huston. Yeah, he played Gandalf's voice back in the old Rankin Bass animated films. He had a great voice for it, but I'm just Sean Connery. I don't think Sean Connery could have gotten away from his accent, and that accent wouldn't have sounded right coming out of Gandalf. So I gotta say we dodged a bullet with that.
We did. Jim?
Of all the questions to go last, this is the one that sucks. You guys said it all already.
Sorry.
But to be clear, yes, Viggo Mortensen, hands down for me. That he's just exceptional. And honestly, I've seen him in other things since. He's never recaptured how well he performs in this movie. In anything else he's done. It's not that he's put out stuff that hasn't been good, but nothing has been Aragorn. It was such a performance. And throughout this movie, he sells it. It's solid. His pain when he finds that the hobbits are dead and he kicks the bucket, and you all know he broke his toe when he did that, right? You all know that. But still, he's so in the character at that moment that, yes. Oh, so good there. Ian McKellen, 100%. Yeah. As Gandalf, we see such a different, nuanced performance from him in this, when he comes back as a new character, basically, and yet not. And how he plays that through this film is fantastic. So it's not just that he's great at Gandalf, it's how he does Gandalf in this movie. Rocks it. And Sean Astin, yeah, this poor guy who is so sure that Gollum is not a good idea, but okay, Frodo. And then he's that tension that he performs of trying to appease Frodo, keep his eye on Gollum, and then slowly, well, maybe Frodo's right, maybe Gollum's not so bad. I mean, very nuanced performance still that I really enjoyed. And I didn't know any of these three actors before this movie, you know, the series, and then went on to enjoy them. Didn't know him.
I knew him from Goonies.
I might have
Goonies.
seen.
Yeah, let's say Goonies.
Yeah, I'd seen him in Goonies. Didn't remember when I saw him in this. I'm not like, oh, that was the Goonies kid, or wasn't he in Rudy? No, I didn't remember any of that. I saw him in this, and it's like, this is Sam. And then afterwards went and what else has he done? And then, yeah, sure, discovered stuff. But that's the thing. Some movies, people do their parts, and you remember the movie. You don't necessarily remember the actors. This is a movie you remember the actors. This whole thing, and then you follow them for the rest of their careers. So, anyways, those are the three.
Aston was one of the two names that I knew before the movies. The other being John Rhys-Davies, of course. I gotta mention Viggo. It just, I think I like Viggo as a person more than I like him as an actor, and he's brilliant. Just everything I've ever learned about Viggo as a person, I just
like he speaks like 7 different languages. He's like a polyglot. He's very well educated. I'm like, oh, I didn't know all this crap. Like, there's a lot. I think English is like his 4th language or something. Literally.
Wow.
I think
remember seeing him.
It's not even a second. I don't think.
I remember
you have to watch
him
A
in
History
G.I.
of
Jane.
Violence.
I remember seeing him in G.I. Jane as, what was it, Master Chief or Senior Chief, whatever.
I didn't see.
But I haven't seen a lot of his other movies since, but I've seen enough to know that he could have had an action star career if he'd wanted it, and he chose not to. He didn't want he didn't want to get pigeonholed into being an action star. And I totally respect that, because after what he did as Aragorn, as Strider,
he doesn't have to.
He could, but he could have had, he does some serious acting, you know. But
that's what I did.
A lot of love for Viggo Mortensen.
Jen, you got to see A History of Violence.
Yeah,
that's one of his movies. That is a great role.
Yeah,
it's excellently acted. It's a great role for him.
Well, right after Lord of the Rings was finished, then came out Hidalgo.
Hidalgo, yeah,
and then A History
Race.
of Violence, and both of those, boom, boom. He was just knocking them out of the park. And then he wandered a little, but he's in a lot of things.
He's entitled. Like,
that's right.
Yeah, I was in freaking New Zealand for like 10 years of my freaking life making these 3 movies, like on the other side of the effing world. I'm gonna get like, come on now. And then did some more movies after that. I'm gonna take a break.
And he had
he's the kind of guy now that can do like artistic movies now. You know, he doesn't have to do the ones that are gonna make $1 billion and stuff. No, he can do what he wants. He follows passion projects now, which is great.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. That's how you know.
And to think he had to be talked into taking the role by his son.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
He didn't want to be away from his family for 1.5 years. And his son was a big fan of the books and says, no, Dad, you got to take this part.
You got to be Aragorn. You're going to be Aragorn? Oh, yeah, Dad. Hello.
Yeah.
So, so the next is our most fun question. It's our most transient. Like, we can just go off into trippy land here. Of the themes present in this episode, which ones caught your attention? This is a famous themes. I think what the adaptation themes is what stands us apart from any other review show. But anyway, what are they relevant to the books or the events happening IRL? So what are the themes of Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers? I'll kick it off with Matt. I think I'll kick it off with you, or Jim, or Matt, Glenn, whoever wants to chime in first.
On themes, because I don't like stealing from people's.
I do have one, but you said Matt first. Bill, do you have something?
I'm sorry. Can you say Matt? Sorry, Matt staggers.
No, it's fine. It's same thing. Honestly, people call me Matt all the time in the fandom.
Yeah.
That's just who I am. I'm Matt.
Yeah.
Drives my wife crazy because her brother's name is Matt. So she's like, "You are not my brother." I'm like, "No, that would be weird." As far as themes, friendship, loyalty. I mean,
Yeah.
love, that, non-toxic sort of friendship love that you have. I mean,
Mhm. Mhm.
I'll go with
Platonic
those.
love.
All right.
Yeah.
There is a theme. I love what they did with this movie because it was intended in Tolkien's work,
Mhm.
and they came through and they used the Saruman storyline to play it well, and that is the advancing of technology in industry overriding nature,
Good
the
point.
environment, and
Mm.
destroying, and how dangerous and wrong that is. And they did it. They did it beautifully.
Mhm.
And the extended edition helps you see it much more as Sauron gets to talk more early in the movie as they're creating the Uruk-hai and the forest, burn it, and all that stuff. But you get to
Gunpowder.
see what they do around Isengard and how it's destroying,
The
and then
environment.
the environment comes back.
Mm.
Yeah, it's good
Mother
stuff.
Nature fights back.
Yeah, don't
Finish
tamper,
him.
So I
Uh,
love that they really leaned into that theme, and every tree hugger in the world was yes, when they watched this
yeah.
movie.
Yeah. I'll probably say fighting against an overwhelming darkness that no matter how small you are, can it's very Tyrion. No matter how small you are, you can cast a great shadow. That was actually taken like from like Frodo and being like small, and like the small person can over triumph. Like, it was for, hey, when times are dark, you got this. You got some good friends, and we're gonna fight God. It was the original JRPG of me and my friends with the power of friendship can fight God. In this case, Saruman. So by the way, for those that don't know, that's like the JRPG theme for every video game. The power of friendship can fight even a god. But anyway, no matter how small you are, you can be Tyrion and cast a great shadow. No, different thing. That's Game of Thrones. No, like basically the point I'm trying to make is that the Lord of the Rings, this whole thing with hobbits all started with a hobbit, right? And the little hole in the
Hobbitses.
ground, a little hole in the ground, and then all the stories start, the Hobbit, and they start from there about how you can go on a great journey and accomplish great things. And just, even if you got to get away from your bread and butter and your little hobbit hole of wine, you can still just stay true to that and accomplish anything. That's
Way leads on to way.
I think Samwise spoke one of the biggest themes of the book and the movie there at the end when he gave that little speech that even emotionally affected Gollum. If you go back and watch Smeagol when Sam
He
gives his
did.
little thing, hope that,
That's right.
as long as there's, as long as you can have hope, you can always, it's always, things are worth fighting for, and that hope is, the answer to a lot, so there's the obvious, that's standard in most fantasy, at least to that, for the first 70 or so years that it was popular as a genre, and that's good versus evil. I mean that's, but yeah, the one that I was originally thinking of, and Jim took it, was, brought it up, was the whole industry, the advance of industry, the industrial revolution versus, maintaining an environment, and it Tolkien gives me the impression that he wouldn't like the modern day at all. Um, but I think you need to find a balance between industry and technology and then the environment. You know, I always wanted to have a house that looks like it is like part of the nature, the nature around me, but still have hidden high tech within it, just so that you don't notice it, but it's
You
usable.
want a
You
hobbit
want a
hole with
high-tech hobbit
Wi-Fi.
hole.
I gotcha. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes,
High-tech hobbit hole. Gotcha.
yeah. And to this day, if I ever hit the lottery and have the money to do it, I'm going to pay Weta Workshop to come and rebuild Bag End in my front yard, a big version so that I can be Hobbit in there like Frodo and Sam, and then I want a small version for the kids to play in when they can look like hobbits in there. You know, that's besides the fact that I'm having a Millennium Falcon built in my backyard,
A
life
given.
size,
Absolutely.
like you do, you know.
I love that.
But
Like you do.
Like you do. It's great.
right, so, But
Par for the
yeah,
course. All the one.
it's a balance. The book brought that theme of the industry versus nature right off the bat, and whether Tolkien was consciously thinking about it, whether how I just can't imagine him not thinking about it that way, because there's that whole argument people have. Well, Tolkien didn't write an allegory. Tolkien disliked allegory, but you didn't read the whole thing, and plenty of people have refuted that whole argument that people have. But yeah, I don't want to ramble. So
Yeah. Well, and keep in mind, Tolkien was impacted by the war, and he saw the advance of technology and what it was doing, how it was wreaking havoc, not just on the world, but on mankind. And that impacts, let's take it back to a
Yeah, the
simpler,
birth
better
of
time.
tanks.
Yeah.
Also, the horror of war is another one that he was really writing about. I mean, I think the movie goes a little bit further towards that end, showing the horrors of war than what Tolkien put on paper.
There's a lot of death in this
A
movie.
lot of death, and a lot of innocents being killed. You don't see villagers being attacked, by orcs and the wild men, in the books. You might hear about it, but it's not like something that happens on the page. Whereas here we see the villages being attacked, and it just the real cost of war.
And Rohan, getting those kids on the back of the horse, and then that's goodbye town. Peace out.
Even when there's a righteous war, there's still cost to it.
Yeah.
So now we come to the special magic time of only for films and season finales. So this is a rare question bonus round. So we're going to go into it.
That's good.
Yes, a few extra questions. So this will be I would like to go first on this one. So how well did the writers and production handle the characters? Did the writers and directors understand the characters? Question mark. I think this should be answered with everyone needs to get on like Peter Jackson and company's level. This is like the gold standard of how you understand a movie. Like there's understanding, and then there's Peter Jackson. I mean, like he was that. I mean, they were like living out there in Hobbiton. I mean, they built Hobbitons from scratch. I mean, they were in New Zealand, they cut off from the rest of like mainland and where they live and their families, and they're all just picking their toes in the dirt for like a year plus, making all these 3 movies back to back, friends. You don't see that kind of dedication of making 3 movies at the same time. That you do now, and just redoing everything. I mean, you lived, breathed, ate, slept under the stars. You were that character, and you did not leave from being that character, except maybe like a couple of times you fly out, but that's it. Like that was your day from when you wake up to go to sleep, and you just embodied that. And you can see that throughout the film. Like these people didn't like work for 2 months and then go home and chill. Like these people had a level of dedication that just isn't seen for good reason. I don't think like that's necessarily healthy to do for every single thing. I mean, Lord of the Rings needs to be an exception, but yeah, unparalleled. Hello, like, are you gonna find anything like I don't think you can find anything better without it getting into unhealthy territory of how these people, and so yeah, in my opinion. But I'm obviously you guys are welcome to disagree or say whatever you believe. Leave it to anybody.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll jump in on this again. Gold standard, absolutely. I'm older than you. Okay, I might be the oldest one here. I'm not sure about that, but okay.
I'm next.
So I know what was before. Okay, the kinds of stuff that did come to the theaters and stuff. And when it came to big fantasy, we didn't have the quality yet. There was a lot on the line. And Peter Jackson knew this. In putting this out there, could they prove that we can be true to an adaptation and make something of epic quality so that it'll stand up against anything? And he brought people around him who bought into that, and they went all in, and we owe them all a debt, because it's not only it's the fans loved it, but it's commercial success. It's success with the Academy Awards. I mean, it put it out there. You can take fantasy and you can make it big and you can throw a lot of money at it and make an amazing thing, and it will also make money. You can do that. So yeah. Oh man, they got this. This was an act of love, but they also, I think, understood how important it was to the future, and they didn't want to screw up the chance they had.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
And I think that's why they made one of the changes that they made. And then we've discussed it earlier. Aragorn, the fundamental shift of Aragorn, in the books where he's all confident, he's never has any self-doubt about becoming the next king of Gondor. Whereas in the movie, I'm sorry, the modern day audience doesn't seem to like characters like that. I think we're more sympathetic with a hero who has doubts, who's unsure whether he should become the king. I don't know that if they had stayed fully true to Aragorn, the movies would have done as well. They would have done well. I just don't think they would have done as well. So I
think you're right. Yeah.
In that aspect, with Aragorn, they might not have stayed true to the character, but I think for the modern audience, it was an improvement.
We're getting ahead of it, but just the teaser, you think of the power of that scene later with Elrond. That is set up because Aragorn is uncertain.
Yeah.
That's something that delivered, and you feel it, and because of the way they chose to adapt Aragorn. I completely agree with you.
Yeah. So
I'd have to say, pretty much everybody from Peter Jackson down to the prop guy, they absolutely grok Lord of the Rings. That's it.
Yeah. I can't argue.
I mean,
that.
they fully understood it and delivered on it. So they absolutely grokked.
Whether the same could be said of The Hobbit?
No.
No. But there's a lot to unpack with the whole thing of what happened with the Hobbit movies. We'll get to those down the road, maybe, for later anniversaries. Maybe.
I'm just asking for a friend.
It might be interesting to can compare and contrast in 2 years, the first Hobbit movie to what we just did with our first three anniversaries, doing Return of the King and Fellowship of the Ring, and this one. I don't know. We might not watch it. We are already going to force ourselves through Dune 1984 again, but.
Ooh.
But that might not be this year. Because I want to do that.
Well,
closer.
No, it looks like next year.
Yeah. We've already done some Dune this year. We'll probably be doing it next year.
Does have Captain Picard.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, it does.
I respect it. I respect it.
And some Tetris special effects for shields.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Moving on. Let's get back to Lord of the Rings. Oh, who would you say? I'm sorry. Who was the MVP for this? This is hard, actually. This is actually really effing hard. Could be an actor, director, writer, anyone on the cast or crew. Bro, this is hard for an MVP.
Jackson.
I'm going to
cheat. I got one. It's easy.
I'm just going to say Weta Workshop. Richard Taylor at Weta Workshop.
I'm probably going with Peter Jackson because it was shot down. He had to fly back and lobby again because they cut the funding, and they're like, no dice, after he already, it was himself, like by himself, him and his whole bootstrap. That's it, alone. Had to lobby New Line Cinema. So we wouldn't have any of what we're seeing without him as a person, the lone standing guy, Peter Jackson, who bought
MVP, definition of MVP.
Yep.
So I would probably say, because of we would have nothing without him, because they told him no and they shut his shit down and he had to go back and be like, no. It was him. He delivered the whole presentation. Then they said yes, and then they said no, and then they said yes again because of him. So yeah.
I'm going with.
But Weta Workshop is a worthy shout out, man. They're wow.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is not anything like it is without their contributions.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So 9A is how close was the adaptation to the source material? How would you grade it out of 10? I'm gonna, oh man, because there are some deviations. You have to be fair. So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna roll the dice. If I'm making that reference, I'm gonna roll the dice. Time to roll it. I would say 8.5 out of 10. That's where
Okay.
that's my final answer. I'll pass it to Bill. Do you want to do?
Honestly, 7.
That's
I'm
fair.
right about 7 because I mean they had to change a lot
They did.
for the story to make sense. You know, they've added a little bit of plot lines here and there that weren't necessarily in the books, but I still enjoy them and they make it
Right.
more compelling. So I'm not going to ding them too hard for it and say 7.
You're right.
Jim?
7.5. And for the same reasons. The changes
top.
they made. I told you, I love the adaptation choices,
Mhm.
but they do deviate from the books in a number of ways. Nothing that ruins the movie in any way, but this is only measuring how close was the adaptation to source material. So 7.5.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with Jim. 7.5. I'd say it's 75% accurate to the page, the page. So that's that's still pretty significant,
Yeah.
accuracy.
I mean, something that shifts it the most for me is there's a lot more humor in the screen than was in the book. And
Yeah.
that plays really well. I love it, but
Mhm.
that's a lot of deviation. All the laughs they go for at times, and it's
Jackson
some of the stuff people love about this movie. So
Jackson pulled a
Kill
+1.
score.
Peter Jackson's script pulls a +1 on some of the comedy. One of the comedic through lines in the books was Gimli and Legolas's count at the Battle of Helms Deep.
That's right.
Kill count.
In the kill count, Gimli wins with 42 to 41.
That's right. He does.
In the movie, it's Gimli with 43 to Legolas's 42, and Legolas shoots a dead orc to tie him.
Yeah, but he was already dead, so it doesn't count.
It doesn't
So
count.
Gimli
Twitching.
wins
He was twitching.
because his axe was in his nervous system.
But I like how Jackson upped the count by 1. I don't know why he did it, but I guess he wanted to get away from that 42 because everybody would hear 42 and automatically think,
Hitchhiker's Guide to
Douglas
the
Adams.
Galaxy.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
because
We gotta
Douglas
do that.
Numbered
Adams laid
everything.
claim. Douglas Adams laid claim to that number, and he just took it
did.
away.
They
from
did.
Tolkien.
It's the answer to life and everything.
Yep.
So
So
this
long, and
question.
thanks for all the fish.
That's right. The
That too.
dolphins. So how much I enjoyed the book shows if I never read the books, I can confidently answer this question because I watched the show without reading the
Yeah,
books
I
first.
think you should.
10.
Yeah.
10. And that's literally coming without having I did not have any source material to back that off of when I saw it. I was like, this is freaking amazing. So
I
yeah.
can't. I can't do this.
I can't
Why?
answer this one either.
It's such an integral part of my life
Oh,
from the time I was very young
See, I mean, it's
that
very
I cannot
easy for me.
separate it.
That's
Yeah.
so
separate it.
wild.
I can't.
It's been part of my life since before you were born, Jen.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. It's so weird to see that. I love doing this with you guys because
Yeah.
I love it because we have different but we all love it, but for different reasons. And you guys are just so much more intrinsic. Like you have such a deep love that I can't. It's so great to hear this, to hear it.
I went
It's
from age
wonderful.
7, 8, reading it at least once a year until I was 30. And I was
Oh my
30 when the
goodness.
movie, well, just before I was 30. Until last year, reading the books for this, I hadn't actually read the books since before the movies came out. And I used to read it every single year at least once.
That's
how-
so much mirrors my experience. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I read them all the time. And then I watched the movies and
Now
didn't
you
keep
watch the
reading them
movies.
anymore because I had the
Yeah.
movies now. And it was
That says a
so
lot.
well adapted.
I think you guys answered this question.
Well,
Yeah.
I
Without
will
knowing
give a
it.
number though. I will give a number, and I will say 10 as well
Same here.
because of the evidence that's out there. I mean, the fact that it made so much money. Most of the people who went and saw it had not read the books. They just hadn't. Most had not. They
Right.
loved it. And when it gets Academy Awards for the third movie, that's really for the whole thing. Everybody
Mhm.
knows it. So it also gets critical acclaim, which
Mhm.
typically this sort of genre film does not. So this went beyond what the previous boundaries were. So it's a solid 10 for people who didn't know the books. It's just great film.
Beyond the boundaries of
That's
Fantasia.
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
the
just
only
looking
answer
at
I
the
can give.
increase in book sales after the movies came out, I got to give it a 10 based on that. But honestly, I can't internalize what this movie would be like without Lord of the Rings. I can't do it.
That's so
Yeah.
I
cool.
can't separate it.
I love this. That's
And
so
that's
that
like
makes
me trying
me
to remember a world
respect
without
it
Star Trek and
much
Star
more.
Wars.
Yeah. We were
Yeah,
so
it's just-
excited when this was finally coming to the screen. I'm sitting in the theater and the
Oh my
music
God.
starts
I
and
just
the
thought of something.
words
I'm
come
like
up there and we're like, but not because it's silent. Because
So
we're all
I'm like
glued.
somebody that's never read the books Wheel of Time, just watching the show for the first person, and you guys are the people that have loved the books for so long and have been
Yeah.
waiting for the show to come out and are like, no, I can't.
You're a
That's how
watcher.
you guys are feeling about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just occurred to
Except
me.
there's a key difference in that pretty much everybody who loved the books loved the movies.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
little naysayers.
I'd say like
Wheel of Time's been more
95%.
contentious in the fan base. That's
Mhm.
different. So, and I
Mhm.
miss those days where we could
Mhm.
all just be excited.
Well, I also
True.
think the fandom and fandoms in general is a lot more contentious than it's ever been.
Well,
Yeah.
we have a lot more access to each other, so
Yeah.
Mhm.
there's more stuff to get upset over, I guess, that I just don't get upset over. So
Well, social media wasn't really much of a thing
No.
when
Yeah.
these started coming out.
That was new. So, the last question for this is kind of sad because I love talking about this movie, but how much you enjoyed the show taking into account all the changes. And Glenn, you're gonna go first for this one. Please, if you please.
10.
Throw up the dubs.
Yep.
10's all
It's
aboard.
10 all the
10.
way.
Gold standard,
Um,
man. There it is.
You don't get better.
I
I
I
agree.
don't think
I can
it's
still
just
watch this and go,
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
it's just the best adaptations ever done from book to screen. I when people ask me what my favorite movie of all time is, it is The Lord of the Rings extended edition as one film.
all
Yeah.
They were
12 hours,
filmed
baby.
they were filmed as one. They
They
should
were?
be watched as one. And I have
Mhm.
done that numerous
Multiple
times,
times.
including at the theater one day. The day before
Ooh.
Return of the King came out on Wednesday, a Wednesday of the week. I was at Trilogy Tuesday. We went an hour drive to a nearby town to go watch it at the theater where they had this. New Line put this together, and there was, I think, 1,000 or 3,000 theaters worldwide that on Tuesday watched Fellowship of the Ring extended, and then Two Towers extended, and then an hour and a half before the release at the rest of the theaters at 10:30 that night, I saw Return of the King. I was hoping they were going to sneak us the extended edition for Trilogy Tuesday people, but they didn't. I didn't see that for a while. But
You had the movie catheter, didn't you?
I
You did the
no,
movie
I
Yeah,
didn't.
catheter.
man. I'm like,
But there were
Ugh.
9 of us. My parents went with me and 6 of my friends. And
Yeah.
That's cool.
It
That's
was
a
a lot
really
of
cool
fun. My
story,
mom was the
Glenn.
only one that stayed awake and in the theater for all 3 of the movies, the entire part of the movie. She got up and moved around between films, but yeah, it was fun. I remember the guy I rode down there with, because we were the only 2 shall we say hippies. And we sat out in the car being hippies beforehand, and I remember him
Got you.
changing his outgoing voicemail message on his phone to, "Hey all, I'm on a tour of Middle Earth. I'll call you when I get back." And I was
Oh,
like,
that's
"That's
really sweet.
perfect." And yeah, it was fun. It was fun seeing all 3 in the theater at once.
That's
Nice.
so cool. Do you guys remember your first time seeing this movie? Do you guys all remember?
yes.
Yeah.
vividly.
Yep. Very
Yeah.
vividly.
That's
Even though I
so
had
cool.
been
Like,
very, very hippie before the first movie.
gives you
Return of the
shivers down
King
your spine.
It has
Okay.
a little special because it's the first one I could bring my son to.
Oh.
He was born in
Oh.
99. He
Mhm.
still was a little too young for the Two Towers even, but Return of the King, now he was all caught up. He was ready.
Nice.
Bonding
Awesome.
moment. That was good.
Nice. I think this is one of these movies that stand the test of time. Not every movie made should be like this, because it's way too much. Like, come on, people don't have that. But if it could, it would be so nice. It's just like, if you think about, like, if somebody, like, if aliens came down on the planet, it's like, show us what your cinema is. I would show them these 3 movies, and I would say this is the human experience of what, in America anyway. I don't know about I can't know, but this is the
Wow.
only thing. Well, it's
I'd
like
show somebody
America,
this
British,
trilogy.
New Zealand, like Australia. Like, this is like what we bring to film. Like, this is like it. I really like, a lot of people say like Citizen Kane and stuff like that is a bit, but to me it's like, nah, it's I mean, what
I-
do you do it? Like, if you feel bad or you feel sad, or what else are you putting in besides this? Like, for the normal person, like, even the normies, you don't even have to like fantasy. Like, everyone remembers where they were, everyone remembers their feeling, everybody can quote all of the lines. It's like the zeitgeist. Like, it is the thing. So yeah, I'm happy with it.
We
Like,
wouldn't
beyond it,
have the Wheel of Time TV series without
you
these
wouldn't
movies.
have almost
We wouldn't
any
have had Game of
fantasy.
We wouldn't
Thrones.
have Game of
Game of
Thrones.
Thrones wouldn't exist.
Yeah,
Nope.
we wouldn't have any of it.
Yeah,
None of it.
it just
Y-
fantasy was not
No
seen as
betrayal
a
at
viable
Crondor.
product.
No.
Now, we owe Game of Thrones for having all of this level of stuff now on
Yes.
television too.
Yes.
Yes.
They proved it. We can do it on the
We-
small screen, just like Lord of the Rings was on the big screen. We can do it here. Yeah.
Wheel of Time was the answer to Game of Thrones. The Witcher was Netflix's answer to Game of Thrones. Didn't work out so full of Netflix or but
And the
that was at
Shannara
least
Chronicles was.
Stop,
MTV's
stop.
for-
You turned into Charlie Brown's parents, and all I heard was wah, 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 wah.
yeah.
I couldn't hear that. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, it's all right. So, do we have anything more about the Two Towers, you guys? Let's wrap this up.
No, you're gonna have to cut that entire ending.
I think
Sorry.
we've knocked
Oh,
it
I
out. We
know.
rocked it. We're done.
So,
We're
Sorry.
excited. It's 4 days away. Come on.
yeah. Well, everybody at home, thank you for watching. This has been a fun 2 years, and we're hoping to do some more. So, please come back. So, thanks for watching, and don't forget to be awesome.